2, 3. Slope and lines. Slope and lines. Now this has a very important topic built into it, right, Tracy? Just sleeping through the day. And the important topic is actually this one over here. A calculus book is about 1,000 pages or so, a really thick book, and half of the book deals with that one word. The entire topic of math is based on slope, which is kind of cool if you think about it. So when we talk about slope, I like talking about why do we set it up the way we do, because most teachers just say, here's the formula, plug it in and get an answer. So when we talk about slope, I like talking about what does it mean. So if I have these 2 points and a line going through them, that generates what we're going to consider slope. Before we even start, what kind of function is this? Increasing or decreasing?
Increasing.
It's increasing, and it's increasing all the time for the entire domain, negative infinity to positive infinity. So when we talk about an increasing function that is happening all the time and it's a line, we're going to call this positive slope. The number associated with this slope happens to be a positive value, not negative, and definitely not 0. Would you consider this a large positive slope or a somewhat small positive slope? Think of it this way. You're riding your bike up that hill.
It's not that steep.
It's not that steep, so I would consider it small. I could take that point and move it way up here, and all of a sudden that bike is looking a little bit more difficult, and ropes and
pushable.
Yeah, some elevators come in handy, those type of things. So we're going to call this small, or relatively small. Not super small, but relatively small. Still would be pretty hard pedaling up this hill, but we could do it. Okay, now in coordinate geometry, you have to be really careful. There's no such thing as side-to-side motion like this line is going. There is only left-right, and there is only up-down. And that generally forms right triangles when you do the motion between 2 points. So I have this right triangle, and we have a right-left motion and a up-down motion. So what slopes do is, you either have 2 ways of going. You can go, in this case, you can go to the right, get underneath the point, and then take an elevator and get up to it, and arrive at the same location as if you were driving along the green line. Or you can go up first, and then you can just walk over. So it's either the elevator ride at the beginning or the elevator ride at the end, depending on which way you want to go. This is basically known as a ratio. We're going to compare 2 numbers. It's either x over y or it's y over x. And I got to know which one really associates with a small positive slope. So let's give this a coordinate. Let's say this is 1, 2. And this point over here is, let's say, 7, 6. Yeah. No, 7, 4. 7, 4. Okay. So if I go x value wise first, how far is it from this point to this point over here?
Up.
7.
I'm going this direction first.
7.
I want to go right first and then up. It's how many units?
7.
It is not 7.
If you go all the way.
It's 2.
So I start here and I go to here.
That's 2.
How far did I go? I started at 1 and I am ending at 7.
6.
That's 6 units.
Oh, okay.
That's 6 units. And it's positive 6 units because we're moving to the
Right.
right. Okay. Now here, if we start here and go up to the point here, how far is that?
We start 2 and go up.
Go up
It's
to,
2. It's 2.
it's 2 units. Because you start at 2 and you go up to 4.
4.
Now it's up 2 units, so again that is positive. Which is good because we're talking about a positive slope to begin with. Alright.
So the slope is.
And by the way, this over here is 2 and this is also 6. So I have 2 choices for slope. It's either 6 first and 2 second as a ratio, Or it's 2 first. We take the elevator first and 6 second.
I thought it was wrong.
I don't know anything yet. This is what I'm coming up with. Now, is it 6 over 2, which is equal to 3, or is it 2 over 6, which is equal to 1/3? Which one better describes a small positive slope? The 1/3. So this one has us taking the elevator first and the walk second. Well, this is going along the y-axis, and this one is going along the x-axis. What we're going to call this 2 here is change in y. Delta Greek letter, but we're going to read it as change. How do you make change when you go to a grocery store?
Right computer.
Yeah, but you go buy a $2 candy bar and you give them $10. How do they figure out your change?
That's right.
They subtract. So when you say change in y, you're going to subtract y values. Well, your y values are 2 and 4, and 4 minus 2 happens to be 2. Okay. And then the 6 here, we're going to call that change in x. And again, it's subtracting the x values. So that is 1 minus 7. Well, wait a minute. 1 minus 7 happens to be negative 6. Do we always have to go from the second point to the first point then? And the answer to that is no. And that's why I hate the formula. So 2 over 6 becomes change in y over change in x. This is slope. Okay. Now, why do I not care which way I subtract my numbers? They do create negatives when you go backwards, right? Agreed? Yes? No? Maybe?
I'm sorry, we were right. What'd you say?
Why am I not concerned about which way I subtract my numbers? If you subtract numbers backwards, it changes it to a negative. But if you switch 2 of them, it switches both of them to negative, and a negative over a negative is a positive. So as long as you keep the order of the numbers exactly the way you want them to, the answers will always come out right. So for instance, I'll give you, let me do a for instance first. Let me do my for instance first. If you have negative 5 comma 6 and 4 negative 3, and I want to find slope, I'm going to do change in y over change in x. What's funny is this is a neat little formula in the book. I'd rather you not do the formula at all. I only touch the formula once in this entire chapter. So without the formula, this is the way it's going to work. If you're going to change your y's, you're going to subtract your y's. So I always go left to right. What's your y in the first point? 6. And you're going to subtract away the y in the second point. Notice what I did though. I didn't even look at the second point. I put minus parentheses. Because most people screw up right here, that minus sign. What goes in the parentheses?
-3.
The other y, which is negative 3, over. Now this is important. You have to keep the order of your points exactly the same. So if you started with 6 here, you better go to negative 5. So your first value here is negative 5 minus whatever comes next,
4.
which is 4. The answer to this is 9 over...
-9.
I have been in this habit for 2 days now. I keep getting -1 out of my answers. I don't plan on it, it just happens. Alright, what if I was going by the formula in the book, which is y2 minus y sub 1 over x2 minus x
That's
sub
what
1.
you just did, isn't it?
No, I did 1 to 2. The book says go 2 to 1. So let's just do it the book way. Change in y over change in x. The book way says, oh, let's start over here. So you go negative 3 minus something over 4 minus something. What's the negative 3 minus? The 6. What's the 4 minus? Negative 5. The top number is? Negative 9. The bottom number is? Positive 9. The answer is?
-1.
They give you the same answer. So it's irrelevant which way you do it, as long as if you start with the first point, you better finish with the first point. In other words, if you use the y from the first point first, then you better use the x from the first point first. If you use the y from the second point first, you better use the x from the second point first. In the formula, in the setup, in the subtraction. I could care less which order you do it in. But do not do this. Do not do 6, 3 on the top and 4, 5 in the bottom.
Right.
That'll give you the wrong answer.
Are you showing us this change in y, change in x formula because it's going to alleviate some of the
Pain?
nonsense with the other formulas? Like
Yeah, I'm
slope.
hoping.
And are you hoping?
Plus, this will shorten some of the other formulas later on. It'll take a formula that's like this long and shrink it down to something like this short. Yeah, it makes life. Plus, the other mistake that I've seen with this is putting x on top and
Yeah.
y on the bottom. If you keep writing delta y over delta x, at least you're reminding yourself y's in the top, x is in the bottom. That's important. Okay, so for a couple for you, how about this one? Find slope between -3, 5, and 4, 5. Finding the slope between those 2 points.
I'm still like, I would.
We have 10 seconds, so hurry up. Find me the slope between those 2 points. Yep. So, go. Do the best you can. I'll even start it for you. Change in y over change in x.
And you say it's gonna always be subtract?
Yes.
Okay.
Change means
Yeah,
subtract.
subtract.
Change means subtract. If you're making change, you subtract. Take your 2 values and subtract them.
It'll be 0.
It'll be 0. Because the change in y is going to be 5 minus 5 over, my order would be -3 minus 4. So this would be 0 over -7, better known as 0, because 0 divided by a number is 0. So what kind of line is this? If it has a slope of 0.
It's just vertical.
Increasing is positive
Horizontal.
slope, decreasing is negative slope, so 0 must be
A horizontal.
horizontal because it's constant. So this would represent horizontal line, or a horizontal slope. Do not say no slope. No slope is something else, and I never say it. I'll say 0 slope, and I'll say the other one. What happens if it was -7 over 0?
It would be vertical.
It would be vertical, and it would be undefined. I'd rather you say undefined than no slope. All right, homework. 2-2. Obviously, all the checkpoints.
Wait.
Horizontal line, I already told you that, right?
Right.
Okay, so change in y over change in x. This is what we define to be slope. And a 0 slope was horizontal. So a 0 slope equals a horizontal line. Okay. Something like -4, 3, and 2, 3. That would form a horizontal line because as you change your x values, your y values are staying constant. By the way, the equation of this line is literally y equals 3. The line that goes through those 2 points, because forever and always, for every x value, y is always going to equal 3. So if you see y equals 3, you know you're talking about a horizontal line that has a slope of 0. Okay, so just associate all those 3 pieces together.
Example.
Well, no, I'm just making up a problem like when we ended last time. So if I want to find the slope of the line AB, and I have, 3, -4, and, that's A, and this is B, and 3, 5. Find the slope of those 2 points. So you start off with your semi-formula. It's not a formula, it's actually more directions than anything else. Change in y over change in x. And the directions tell you to take the y's and subtract them, and take the x's and subtract them. So what do you get? You do not get 0. Undefined. Because when you do the y's on the top, you're going to get -4 minus 5 over 3 minus 3 for the change in x's. That's -9 divided by 0. And you really have to keep the difference between 0 on the top and 0 on the bottom separate. 0 on the top gives you a horizontal line. 0 on the bottom gives you an undefined slope. The book says no slope. I don't like the word no because too many people associate that with 0, which is weird. So I'd rather you say 0 slope for horizontal lines, undefined slope for
Vertical.
vertical lines. If you plotted these 2 points, they would be completely vertical. Vertical lines. Okay. So if I was going to graph this, just for the fun of it, let's see, 3, 4, -4, and 3, 5. So you'd come out here to 3, and 5 would be up here, so this would be 3, 5. And 3, -4 would be someplace down here. And if we draw a line through them, we'd get this nice vertical line. Okay. The reason I want to draw it is, well, actually a couple reasons. Number one, I know the equation of this line really quickly. What do you think the equation of this line is?
Right. Wait.
X is 3.
X is 3. Over here, y was 3 because the y values were not changing. They were both 3. Here, the x values are both 3, and therefore this must be x equals 3. The way I remember this is, what axis is this line hitting? The x-axis. Where is it hitting it at? 3. X equals 3. It just comes out that way. The other reason I'm drawing this is, when we're talking about increasing and decreasing, we will always move left to right. So as we move left to right on this graph, which way am I going?
To the right.
I'm moving to the right, but which way is the graph going?
Up and down.
Up and down. There's a danger there. You can't be going up and down. You can't be increasing and decreasing at the same time. So therefore, this kind of gives you an idea of another reason why you can't divide by 0. It's just a neat way of thinking about it. So, undefined slope, vertical lines, equations are x equals some number. 0 slope is horizontal lines, and you get y equals some number as the equation of the line. These are the 2 easy things with slope and equations of lines, vertical and horizontal lines. You just got to kind of keep them straight in your head. That's what you're going to forget. Vertical and horizontal lines, because they are way too easy. Yeah, they're really simple. All right, so let's talk about, let's see, slope, vertical, horizontal, graphing point slope. We'll see what it means to be a slope. Graph the line whose slope is -2 and passes through the point -3, 5. Let's put it up high. Now, a couple questions. How many lines have a slope of -2?
Excuse me?
How many lines have a slope of -2?
Just one.
Just one, really?
Too many.
Too many. Here's a slope of -2. Here's another slope of -2. Here's another slope of -2. Here's another slope of, how many?
This is
Infinite.
Infinite. There's an infinite number of lines that have a slope of -2. But once I have it passing through a single point, it becomes unique. It becomes a unique line with a slope of -2, and it's the only one that passes through -3, 5. Think about that for a second. I could have all these lines going across the plane, and only one of them goes through -3, 5. It's kind of cool if you think about it. Okay, so if I'm going to graph this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, the best way to graph lines is on graph paper because the point should form a nice
Perfect.
ruler type line. But I'm sketching them. If you want graph paper, you know, it's up there in the front corner there. Just take a couple sheets. You don't need too many. Where should I start?
-3.
Can you plot -2? I'm just curious. I've had people plot -2 before.
No,
No.
it doesn't have a.
Well, this thing here, it has nothing to do with coordinates. That is only change in y over change in x. It's not a point, it's a ratio. So the only thing you can plot is that -3, 5. So you go 3 to the left and 5 up, and you plot this point. I'm going to put a little circle around it because that's my start point. You don't have to do that. It's just for my purposes. All right, and when you do a slope of -2, what the heck does that mean? Well,
Down 2 over 1.
down 2 because it's a change in y, and the negative makes it go opposite of what you think it's supposed to go, so it goes down. Change in x is what, though?
Up 1 over 1.
No. The change in y is -2. What's the change in x? What is it? Yeah. 1.
Yeah.
1. Because you can always take a number and divide it by 1. So when you're looking at slope, the best thing to do is to rewrite it. Where can I rewrite it? Change in y over change in x. If it's -2, automatically just put it over 1. It gives you that second value. The second thing to note is, I put the minus sign in the top. Technically it's supposed to be in front, but I put it in the top. Where else could it go?
At the bottom.
At the bottom. But it can't go in both places, because if you put it in both places, you get negative over a negative, which is a positive, So when I get to this point, I'm going to drop 2 units. So I'm going to go down 2 units. This is not part of the graph. It's just what my finger is doing. And then I'm going to go delta x is +1. Which direction should I go?
Right.
To the right one. The biggest mistake people make is they go the wrong direction.
Getting confused.
Yeah. So once you plot this point, kind of put an imaginary line between the two of them. What kind of slope does this line have? Negative. And that better be exactly the same as the slope you started off with. It better be negative.
Hey, well, I have a question.
Yeah.
I was taught that you could do it both. Like, you go.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. Give me a second.
Like up or down.
I'm going slow, so I want you to do these things perfect.
You go slow on the stuff that we kind of know.
That I
and
want
go
you- no.
fast on the.
I go slow on the things that you think you know.
Yeah.
I have more people that cannot graph a line. It's amazing. So I go slow. I want you to graph them.
Sometimes.
Perfect, and that's what I don't want. I definitely don't want
graph
backwards.
sometimes.
So the technique to figure out if you're going backwards is stop at the first point. Go, oh, this is negative slope. My original slope was negative. You can feel good about yourself. If you did the backwards way, you'd be over here and it'd have a positive slope, but that doesn't match up. So therefore, it kind of goes, oh, I did something wrong. Now we can keep on going. From this point, we can drop 2 units. That brings us down to +1 on the y-axis, and yank ourselves to the right 1, and come up with a third point, which is at -1, 1. Or we can go backwards. We can kind of, take this negative sign, float it down to the 1, and now it becomes up 2 and back 1. I call this over to the right and back to the left. And that gives us another point. I have seen people, I always find lines funny. I have seen people have these 3 lines in a row, or these 3 points in a row, and then plop that one over there. And I'm like, what? So 3 points is really all you need. 2 points is technically all you need. Why do I choose 3?
So you
make
can
sure.
see
Just to
the
make sure,
line.
and it creates a better line. The more points you put, the better your line's going to look, especially if you're doing it without a ruler, like me. I think I missed a few things. When I was doing this in algebra in high school, the teacher would take off points if way down here in the bottom part of your graph paper it was off just a little bit. Seriously, they wanted it perfect.
No one you need to graph what was on the graph. Every point.
And it was a whole piece of graph paper.
Oh.
Oh, Lord.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you had to go from top right to bottom corner and have to go off the graph paper, and every intersection, every slope point had to be hit along the entire graph. They'd have this laminate, and they would lie it down on top of it, and if your points didn't line up, they'd take off points.
Wow.
So that's why and the reason is, these slope and lines become a lot of stuff in calculus. And if you don't do it right here, calculus just becomes a lot, well,
Harder.
But
weirder.
we don't need calculus though.
Never say that, because calculus keeps creeping into so many different topics. So, be warned. You never.
I need another math.
What's your topic?
What's
What's your topic?
Radiology.
You don't think calculus is involved. Radiology is all about physics. Guess what physics is all about?
Calculus. You're
Calculus.
gonna be a radiologist.
Exactly. I'm not being a radiologist. I'm being a radiology technician. I need to know the bones.
My ultimate goal is to be a nurse practitioner. If they say I gotta do some calculus, I'll say, you know what? I'll just get my master's in nursing and be a teacher studying this.
Slope, intercept. You all know what slope-intercept is. Or you should. Y equals mx plus b. The problem with y equals mx plus b is, what is m?
It's slow.
Y.
Because it is.
And that's the problem. Nobody knows why m is the slope. They just take the teacher's word for it and they go with it. So what I'd like to do here is show you why things actually work the way they work. For instance, we're going to prove a few things. Prove. The easier one is this. Prove that b is the y-intercept. Alright, so how do I prove that b is the y-intercept? Well, you come down here and you say y-intercept. How do you find a y-intercept of any equation?
Get it myself. Wow.
No. How do you find the y-intercept of any equation? Any equation. Any graph that I want to graph. If you are on the y-axis, what is true?
You're on the Y.
Well, what's the coordinate of this point here?
7.
No, it is not.
0, 7.
0, 7. What's the coordinate of this point down here?
0,
0, 1. What's the coordinate of this point way down here?
0, 5.
0, negative 5. What's always true?
0.
What's equal to 0?
The Y is always
Y is not
I mean
equal to 0.
X.
The x. So if you're looking for a y-intercept, you're going to let
X equals 0.
x. I thought we talked about this.
We probably did.
We did. So let x equal 0. So you go back to the original equation and you say, oh, y equals m times 0 plus b. 0 times anything is?
0.
0 is the 0 multiplication property. 0 plus b is? B. What property?
Community.
No.
Distributive.
Stop going through all of them. 0 plus b is equal to b. What property?
Identity.
Identity.
Because of 0.
Yeah. So you get y is equal to b. What coordinate is this? What's the coordinate?
Y-intercept.
X equals
0.
y equals
B.
b. That's a y-intercept. Therefore, b is the y-intercept. By the way, if I ask you what the y-intercept is, please don't tell me b. Tell me 0b, because it is a point on a piece of graph paper. If the book tells you the y-intercept is 2, you better write it as 0, 2, because otherwise you're going to be confused. Trust me on this.
0, 2.
0, 2. If they tell you the x-intercept is 5, you write it as 5, 0.
Oh, okay. If they tell you what, okay.
Yeah, if they tell you, if they say the y-intercept is negative 3, don't leave it as y equals negative 3, because that doesn't do you any good. You have to write it as 0, negative 3.
Okay, while ago you said 5, 0.
That was on the x. If they say the x-intercept is 5,
So
then
X
it's
would be
5,
So
0.
Y would be
So
0.
if they said it's Y is
0, whatever.
Y.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Because x-intercepts have a value where y is equal to
0.
0. Okay.
Gotcha.
We'll get used to it. All right, now how do I prove the harder part? Yeah, let's move over here. How do I prove that m is really equal to change in y over change in x? See, m is just a letter, but to you it represents slope, but you don't know why, which is kind of scary. So what we have to prove is m is actually the change in y over change in x. So if I'm going to find a slope of this equation, what do I need? How do you find slope? What do you need?
A point.
How many? Just one? I
Just
can use
one.
1 point to find slope? 2. So I need 2 points. I have one. I got 0b. It's a point on the graph. So all I need is another one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little table. Here's x. Here's mx plus b. I need to pick a value for x, but it can't be a number. Because how many numbers can I pick?
2.
Infinite?
Oh.
Domain x. X can be anything. So x can be an infinite number of values. So I have to be really cautious. I think my battery's dying here. I can't choose a number, so I'm going to have to choose a letter. Give me a letter.
A.
C. Chrissy.
Z. No, I don't want to use Z because that's actually a coordinate. A should work.
Yeah.
So if I pick A, this becomes MA plus B. Or AM plus B. It doesn't really matter. All right. How do you find change in Y over change in X? Well, you subtract the Y coordinates. Well, what are the Y coordinates? What's the Y coordinate here?
The y coordinate is B.
0B.
No. Well, the y coordinate here is B.
Okay.
What's the y coordinate with this point?
AB.
And
Oh.
plus B.
A.
Holy
And A plus
Christ!
B.
What's x equal to?
I think
A. What's y equal to?
B.
A plus B.
MA plus B. It's in the
X
y
is X.
position. You all understand what a function is, right?
Yeah, I think we need numbers though.
You don't need numbers.
Yeah.
You do not need numbers. If you take A and you plug it into mx plus b, what comes out is
M
Y.
Y.
if you plug in x, you get
Y.
y. That's a
But I mean,
guarantee.
putting, the X in the formula and the Y, so,
You need to get used to it. If this is x, this side is y, because y equals mx plus b. All right, so you get your change in y is going to be ma plus b minus the y coordinate over there,
B,
b, divided by the x coordinate from this one,
A,
minus the x coordinate from that one,
0.
0. Whew, it's like pulling teeth.
It was, because I still ain't got it.
Why?
So I'm watching you and then I'm going to write it down.
I just,
How about this? If I go y equals 2x plus 3, and I say, let's let x equal 2.
did you just give the formula for me?
Look. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
Makes
this.
Y
If I say x is equal to 2, what do you do with the 2?
Look
Plug
at
You
it.
plug it in, and you get 2 times 2 plus 3. 2 times 2 is?
7. I mean, the whole thing is 7.
The whole thing is 7, okay.
Yeah.
And that's y equals 7. So when you write this as a coordinate, it's 2 comma 7.
It's 2, 7.
But it's also 2 comma 2 times 2 plus 3.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? So if I plug in a, this must be y.
I don't like it that way. That's too hard.
No, it is not. This is algebra. Change in y over change in x equals. What happens to the b's? They cancel rather nicely. So that leaves us with ma in the top. What's a minus 0? No, it is not. A minus 0 is
Do what now?
a minus 0.
Negative O.
Hey.
Is a.
Divide them out.
Yeah.
That's left by.
What happens to the a's?
They cancel.
And you're left with change in y over change in x. The slope is equal to m. That's why m is the slope.
Now can we do some real numbers?
Oh, now can we go back to non-algebraic stuff?
So we did all that just to prove.
Yeah, because I hate the idea that someone told you that it was true, therefore it must be.
Just because
Yeah.
I said so.
I mean, I could say a lot of things are true and you'd be like, oh, sure, okay. I could be telling you lies all the way throughout. What's that?
Confusing this.
I like confusing you, especially when you
You
have to
do.
sleep that
Are we
way.
supposed to use this like a formula or something?
No, this is just saying, okay, now B is the y-intercept, I can
No,
use it that
actually,
way.
Okay.
The m is the slope, now I can use it that way. And
I
understand,
always wondered why they decided M was this and
Yeah.
was that.
Why did they choose M? Why couldn't it be like F
Oh.
or something?
I don't know.
Because they wanted to use, I think they wanted to use numbers
what
that
letter?
weren't
F.
X or Y,
F?
A or B.
F is already taken up with f of x.
Okay, then Q.
Q is called a quotient, it's
Oh my
usually a
God.
function also. Quotient.
What about O? I mean,
O is not a good one because it looks like 0.
what about I? Oh,
I is an imaginary number. You see, all these letters are taken
What
up.
about C?
Yes,
C is actually used for a constant, but yeah, you probably could
Yes,
use C.
Yeah, what
CX
about
plus
S?
B.
But it doesn't look as good.
But C gets confusing because standard form of an equation is this.
Plus equals C.
Yeah, and they use the C for standard form. So, there's a reason for M. I don't know what it is. So, for example,
We should just believe it. There's a reason for M.
it's just a choice of a letter. Who cares?
I'm just trying to make stuff confusing.
We don't get any more.
I know.
We're already.
Is that on the board?
4x minus 7y is equal to negative 14.
Can you do that on your computer?
No.
Oh, I was about to say.
Yeah, it'll just look like a weird symbol there. Okay, so 4x minus 7y is equal to negative 14. I want to know the slope and the y-intercept.
Find slope.
And the y-intercept. So the invisible directions here are what?
Get the Y by itself.
Solve for y. Because you need to get it into this format over here, y equals mx plus b. So if I solve for y, first step is move the 4x across, so you get negative 7y equals negative 4x. minus 14.
Divide by
Now,
7.
even before that, one thing I recognize right away is they're all negative.
All negative.
I would just go through and make them all
Positive.
positive. That way you don't
Really?
screw up signs. Yeah, you could do that. Multiply both sides by a -1. 7y equals 4x plus 14. Just make sure you change all the signs. And then divide everything by 7. So you're going to get y equals. Be careful how you write it. Don't write it as 4x over 7.
It's 4 7's x.
Yeah, we need to see what m is. So 4 7's x plus 2. So what is the change in y over the change in x in this equation?
See,
4
this,
7.
4 7's.
is that the slope?
Yep.
So
What do you think changing y we're changing x? Oh, she wasn't here.
I
was
won't
she?
hear. Because I'm like, what? So
And
that's
b
the
is equal
slope.
to
Yeah.
2.
That's slope. See, if you write m equals 4 7's, you forget what the heck m is sometimes.
I won't. We don't.
Oh, no. But then other people will do this. They'll go left, right, 4, up, down, 7. Because they forget that the top one is y and the bottom one is x.
Okay, so I need to go ahead and write this.
Go away. Miss Hawkins.
Oh, did you give us back our homework? Retest?
I graded it though. Alright, so the slope is 4 7's. What's the y-intercept? Make sure you write it as 0, 2, not just plain old y equals 2, because y equals 2 is a vertical, no, horizontal line. It's a horizontal line. Okay. How about this then? I solved it for y already. So it's in the right somewhat format. What is the slope?
3, 1.
No, it is not. Is
Oh, I
equal
need
to.
I'm sorry, let's switch it around.
Yeah, you have to switch it around. If you want it, it has to be y equals mx plus b.
Should be -1 over 1.
It's -1 over 1 if you want to be really
I thought we were going to
precise.
switch it to positive.
No, why would you?
We just
They're
did
changing
it.
the order.
The only reason I did that over here is because everything was negative to begin with. This one, y is by itself already. There's nothing to do. All you have to do is suck off the numbers. So slope is the coefficient of x. It's the coefficient of x, and the number by itself is the y-intercept. So what's the y-intercept here?
0, 3.
0, 3. What people get so wrapped around is the slope is the first number, the y-intercept is the second number. But you have to be careful of the order of the terms. So if you have to, put it in y equals mx plus b all the time, and you'll never get confused. But technically, slope is the coefficient of x when y is by itself. All right. So let's graph 2x minus 3y is equal to 9. I want to graph this. Now, the first graph that we did, I chose just any point in the plane that was on the line. This one, we're going to be choosing the y-intercept as our starting point. But here's a little clue. If the y-intercept doesn't come out nice, I would highly suggest finding another point that is on the line. But I'm going to try to keep the y-intercepts nice because I'm not interested in weird graphs. So the first step to graph this line is
Get y by itself.
get y by itself. So -3y equals -2x plus 9. Divide everybody by,
-3.
and you get y equals
Positive 2/3 x.
positive 2/3 times x
-3.
minus 3. The slope is equal to 2/3. The y-intercept as a coordinate,
0, -3.
0, -3. Oops, -3. Okay. Now we can graph it. Just a quick one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Where should I start?
0.
No, not where
0,
I want to.
3.
0, -3, which is here?
Right? Good enough.
No.
No.
Get on
What
the
is this
Y.
coordinate over here?
The
That's
X.
X.
That's negative 3, 0.
Uh-huh.
So you want to make sure you go up and down to plot a y-intercept. So down 3, negative 3 is right here. And the slope is
2, 3, so you're gonna go up 1, 2.
up 2,
To the right 3.
to the right 3, and plot another point.
Then go up 1, 2.
1, 2,
To the right 3.
to the right 3, plot another point. I think that's 1, 6.
Down to the.
If you want, you can go down to left
the
3.
3.
And we get this nice line. Now, I forgot to do something, but I feel like I'm doing it the right way. What kind of slope does this line have?
Is it positive?
Positive slope. The slope of this line is
Positive.
positive. They match up, so I feel a little bit better about
You
myself.
said it's a positive slope.
Positive slope. All right. That's enough about graphing for today. Let's go into the other thing. What if... What did I do with it? Ah, there it is. Yeah, let's write it this way.
What is this, we're doing point slope?
Yeah. Another one that I like showing you
Wait.
where it comes from.
Did we just do,
Slope, intercept, graphing, point slope.
what was
So that graph was still slope intercept.
Mm-hmm.
what was the very
Slope.
first?
Intercept. Slope we did last class.
Okay,
So
what
what
was the
is
very
this
first
right
thing we did today?
Oh, the very first thing we did today was vertical and horizontal.
Okay, right after that,
Graphing point slope.
a graphing point, okay, I got,
So
why
what are we
why
doing
can't they
now?
name them differently?
I graphed with a point and the slope, and then there's the point slope form of the line. That's what we're getting to. So given m, therefore this is a value. M is a number.
Okay, so what are we doing here?
Playing around. So let me play, and then you'll know
I
what
was
I'm
gonna
doing.
label it, but
Don't label it yet. So I gave you this value m, some slope, up, down, whatever it is doing, and I gave you a fixed point in the plane. Now, if I give you a slope and I give you a fixed point in the plane, earlier we graphed the line. So this is guaranteed a unique line, so it must have some equation associated with it, some y equals mx plus b equation. Now, to get to this, we're going to take these 2 bits of information, and the only formula that associates a slope and points is this one. The slope formula. M equals that mess. But of course I wrote it as delta y over delta x, so that slope equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So what I want to do is I want to plug in what I know into this equation. Do I know the change in y over change in x?
For which problem?
For this problem right here.
Oh,
Yes.
You get X, Y.
No.
It's
Change in y over change in x is what? M. So I told you this is a value. Whatever it is, it's like 5. So I can replace change in y over change in x with m. Now, when I get to y2 and x2, I don't know them, but I do know y1 and x1. So I'll leave those in there. So here's y1, here's x1. I can't use y2 and x2 because y2 and x2 is a fixed value. What I want to talk about is a variable x and a variable y because that's what's in an equation of a line, y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to leave these 2 variants. So I'm going to call this one y, and I'm going to call this one x. And leave little minuses in there. And what that allows us is, how many points are on this green line over here? An infinite number of them. But every one I choose, the slope between any 2 points has to be, in this case, 2/3. The ratio has to be 2/3. It could be 4, 6, 8, 12, or something like that. And as long as the ratio stays 2/3. But there's an infinite number of these points on the line, so this x, y that I'm choosing here is just all the points that happen to lie on the line. All right. This is our equation of our line, except I don't like one thing about it. I don't like fractions. So how do I get rid of the fraction? Multiply both sides by?
the
bottom.
the bottom, which is x minus x1, and you get to this equation. Y minus y sub 1 is equal to m times x minus x sub 1. This is the formula for point slope. Given any point and given any slope, you can find the equation of a line. Give me two cases where we really don't want to use this formula. Key there is 2.
2 points.
No. I need a slope. Is there any place where I might not have a slope?
When it's,
Or
zero.
A vertical line. So I definitely do not want to use this formula when it's vertical. So don't use on vertical lines because there is no slope. You can't put in a number for m, so this formula is not going to work. The other one I highly suggest you do not use it on not because it won't work, but because it's trivial and this formula is actually way too long for it to be quick. So don't use this formula on vertical and horizontal lines. It's not worth the effort.
Slope on either one of them, is there?
No. You got a zero slope here. What happens then is 0 times this makes it go away, and all you're left with is y minus
Yeah,
y1 equals, and then people forget to put
the 0.
the 0. So I suggest don't use this on horizontal and vertical lines. It's not worth the effort. So for example, find the equation of the line through -4, 3, and 5, 7. Find the equation of the line that goes through these 2 points. It's not going to be pretty because, well, I don't think it's going to be pretty because I made up these points. Yeah, let's see what happens. To find the equation of a line, what do you need?
slope.
You need
The formula.
a point and you need
A slope.
a slope. This is what it needs. Where a slope-intercept tells you what you're going to get out of it, a slope and an intercept, this one tells you you need a point and a slope. Do I have a point? I got 2 of them. I got more than enough there. Do I have its slope? No. So I have to find the slope. So change in y over change in x is equal to.
Which formula are you going to use?
No. I
You
need
have
to find the slope.
first.
So we're going to use
I'm
that
going to use
one.
this formula, but I need to find.
You're going to use
Okay,
the top.
stop that. I don't use that then.
Or
How do you find change in y?
Nine. Y1 minus Y2.
Nah. How do you find the change in y? You take your y's and you subtract them. 3 minus 7
Negative.
over
-4 minus 5.
-4 minus 5 is equal to
Negative 4.
-4 over -9 for a grand total of 4 nines.
Is it?
What?
Okay, wait a minute, hold it.
You have to find the slope first because you have a slope.
Is
Point slope formula.
what you have here, is that?
Yes, but I don't want you to do it that way.
Why?
Because I never taught it by the formula. I only use the formula for this one thing
But
here.
other instructors have, so
That's
that's
great.
what's embedded in their head.
So go ahead and use the formula. I don't care, as long as you define me the slope. Okay, which point do you want to use?
The non-negative.
I don't care, I'm going to use this one.
No.
Why not? I want to play around with the negative one because you might have to. Before you do anything, copy the formula down so that you can memorize it eventually. You'll get sick of looking up where it is and writing it on your paper, and then eventually it'll just stick in your head, and then on test day, you won't have any problem remembering it, because I will not give you this formula. So this becomes y minus 3, because this is the y
I'm looking
coordinate.
at the slope.
3, don't be looking at the slope. Equals, m represents the slope, which is 4 nines. X minus
Negative 4.
a -4, so this minus becomes plus. And now what?
You did it.
Yeah, but I want to solve for y. The book doesn't want to solve for y. We'll talk about that in a second. So what would be your first step here?
Add 3 to both sides?
You could, but that gets kind of messy.
You gotta distribute it right there.
You could distribute the 4 nines.
Yeah, that's probably what I do.
So
what would I do?
we don't know.
Get rid of the fraction.
Get rid of the fraction. I can't stand fractions. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 9. So take this entire side, multiply by 9. Take this side, multiply by 9. When this 9 and this 9 cancel, the 9 is gone. Do not distribute it any further. It doesn't go anywhere. This becomes 9y minus 27 is equal to 4 times x plus 4.
You made it popular.
Yeah, just off the top of my head. That's why it's so ugly. Distribute, so you get 9y minus 27 is equal to 4x plus 16. Add 27 to both sides. 30, 40,
Bring out
43.
old faithful calculator.
and it's 43. Now, let's stop here for just 1 second. On my test, I want you to solve for y. So you divide both sides by 9 and you'd be happy. The back of the book's answers, though, are a mixture of solve for y and standard form. Standard form requires you to have your x's and y's on the same side, the number on the other side, and no fractions. So I'm stopping here because there's absolutely no fractions. So standard form, the answer would be this. It would be 4x minus 9y equals negative 43.
Why y'all got changed?
But that's the way the book has it. So you have two choices. You either learn how to put it in standard form for the fun of it, or you take their answer and you solve it for y and make sure it matches up with what you get. So, I mean, there's just two ways of doing it. But what I want you to do is divide by 9 and have this as your answer.
Standard form is ax plus
ax plus by equals c, right? And a has to be positive for most people. 43 nines. Some textbooks actually write the answer this way. 4x minus 9y plus 43 is equal to 0. They consider that standard form. But most books don't, but some do. Just in case you run into another math book later in life. But this is the equation I'm looking for.
So you want it.
I want it to solve for y. I want you to be able to graph it. This form, standard form, you can't tell what the slope is. You can't tell what the y-intercept is. It actually gives you 0 information. The only reason that standard form is around is for a system of equations, and I don't teach that. To you guys, at least.
Yeah, I think I learned about